So, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Feels almost like a lifetime ago that we did our last episode, but it's been more than a week. And for all the people who are kind of annoyed because of our irregular uh, upload schedule, we just want to say that that's what makes it fun. The mystery that if it's going,
Exactly.
are they going to upload it now or are they not going to upload it this week? Yeah, that's what makes it more exciting. Anup is here with me yet again. Anup, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm also doing quite good. Last week, we read a interesting book, to say the least, right? Uh,
Mm.
I almost forgot the name, but it is. Do you know the name? The four?
Horseman?
No, it was the four agreements, right? It's,
Exactly.
supposedly opposite of the four horsemen.
Mm.
Uh, and yeah, how do you like it, Anand?
It was okay. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't find that good, to be honest. It was an easy read, I found, and the four agreements were also made sense, but yeah, it was not well grounded self-help kind of book, right? Like it was like I'll give you an opinion, take it if you want, don't take it if you don't want. That kind of book, you know what I mean?
Yep.
He was having a lot of opinions, like without any, I don't know, without any facts behind it. I found, and after reading so many help books, like it was like deep work, because I already know so many self-help books. This was at least at most mediocre.
Yeah,
How did you like it?
I would not say so. I think it is a good gateway for people who like an easy read, right? Like you said, the book is quite
Mm,
easy, straightforward.
mm,
The four agreements are, I would say, it makes sense.
mm,
Basically, the four agreements were be precise with your speech, with your word. Uh,
mm.
don't take things personally. I always forget the third agreement.
Don't make any. Yeah, I
Yeah,
just googled it right now.
don't make assumptions and then always give your
Yeah,
best. So yeah, it's just
exactly.
your typical messaging, right? And it's not
Mm,
backed up with scientific facts like some other self-help books out there. It's
yeah,
more
yeah.
an opinionated piece. And I would say it has been written uh, quite blandly. It felt like
Mm,
one of my exam answers, when you're a young kid and you had to write in your English language exam for 10
yeah.
marks, 200 words. You just keep
Mm,
repeating
mm,
stuffs again and again. It
mm,
felt something like that. One thing I had learned is, at least I read somewhere, is self-help books are supposed to be written that way, where they keep repeating the message again and again so that it kind of
mm.
because the repetition is the only way that you learn stuff, right? So if
Yeah.
you really want to learn from self-help, then you have to repeat it again and again. But I just want you to
Mm,
contrast this with one other self-help book that has had a very big influence in your life, The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning, and it is also kind of similar. It's just an opinion, right? But
yeah,
there is
yeah, yeah.
distinct difference between the two books. And I just want
Mm,
to give you
mm,
a hint, is the writer of this four agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz, is also
mm,
70 plus years old. So he's also in the same
mm,
age
mm,
group as
mm,
the writer for the Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning.
I don't know, man. Like I read some kind of book that goes into the spirituality direction, right? I don't know if you can call The Alchemist a spiritual kind of book, but for me it was.
Yeah.
Okay, and even that book was like pretty nice. I found, right, until the part where the master says, "Okay, now be the wind," and then like he says, "Yeah, I became the wind." And
Mm,
after that part, I didn't like that book.
mm, mm,
So until that, it was still like, okay, yeah, come on, I still get it, right? But
mm,
in that book, it felt weird, and also in this book, this is also spirituality kind of book, right? And
mm,
I don't think spirituality is my genre.
mm, mm. Yeah, I I can understand. There was from my point of view, I think it missed a bit of intrigue, at least kind of
Mm,
to capture your attention. Uh,
mm,
what I was alluding to in my previous statement, basically comparing this with The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning is
mm,
the Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning reads like a memoir by the writer, right? She's writing about her experiences. She's being a bit vulnerable with her
mm,
life, and her messaging is grounded
mm,
upon experienced events. But
mm,
for this book, it felt like, yeah, like these are messages, but I don't really back them up with something. Just make another
mm,
statement to add thing on it, and okay, it works
mm,
good as a lecture probably, but for us who want to read an interesting book, I think it misses the point. The message itself are, I would say, practical, right? It's
mm,
quite makes sense. Some of the
mm,
allegories, the way the writer tries to appeal to the ancient Mayan civilization and stuff like that, makes it intriguing. But I was
mm,
kind of disappointed when he did not ground his study based on probably Maya rituals or something like that. Because
mm,
the
mm,
start he speaks about the whole warrior Mayan, somebody from South America, but later on
mm,
he's not drawing enough from them. And I think it would have been very
mm,
interesting if he had just looked at Mayan civilization, their rituals, and then try to draw a parallel with the spirituality aspect of it. Not so
mm,
much try to just use it as a hook and then yeah, repeat the message that is being said again and again. And
mm. I think it was called Toltec, right? Toltec wisdom or something
yeah,
like that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Look, like after reading this book, like I was searching for someone who shared my opinion of not liking this book. Okay, and so
Mm,
I searched like in Google. I typed some bad keywords, just to get my
mm,
opinion. And then I found one Reddit blog, and that actually kind of approved my opinion. So
mm,
this one agreement, right? Like, do not take anything personally. I
yeah,
actually have already told you about this contradiction, right? So it basically goes like this, like. He says you shouldn't take anything personally, and
mm,
I was like, okay, and he takes it to an extreme, right? Like, so
mm,
if somebody, like has a gun in your head and he shoots you, don't take it personally. It's because of the
mm,
circumstances that person was in, right?
mm, mm,
He or she might have had a problem, maybe, and okay, I get it, right? Like, you are
mm,
taking this, don't take this personally thing like to an extreme. That's still
mm,
okay,
mm,
like I was still okay with that. But later on, he kind of says like, if you have like toxic people in your surroundings, like
mm,
you should um, have distance to them,
yeah.
and I was like, he says like, and
Mm.
I approve his opinion or her opinion. That person says like, okay, but
It's a him.
you just shouldn't take personally that that person
Yeah,
is toxic, right?
yeah,
And you have solved the problem. Why going distant to that person,
yeah.
and this was just one example. I think, I don't know, like it's also because of our subjects, maybe because we're studying scientific engineering subject, like
Mm,
you kind of feel if something is not consistent, in a way,
mm.
right? Um,
I,
and
I,
you
I,
actually,
yeah.
hmm?
Please finish your thought. I would just want
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. You actually want to have some deductive points, right? Like you
Yeah,
want to have a deductive
yeah,
fact, right? Like,
yeah,
okay, the fact comes from some ground truth, right? And I found like that was not in the case in this book. Like sometimes you would just say like, yeah, here's this thing, and just take it, right?
yeah,
And I think that was the message that I didn't like.
yeah. To be honest with you, I think it's just a consequence of uninspired writing. I would say I would not say it was bad writing. To be honest, the
Mm,
messages were
mm,
good. The
mm,
it was very accessible read for anyone. So
mm, mm,
people who are not so much into English language can pick this book up and be able
mm,
to read this, and it is very easy read. It's very quick read. So
mm,
everything goes well. But even books about spirituality where people argue about gods and stuffs like that, for example,
mm,
Upanishads or Bhagavad Gita itself,
mm,
or
mm,
the much maligned 14 Rules for Life, 12 Rules for Life for Jordan Peterson. Those are very interesting read, right? And despite of the
mm,
message, which we are
yeah,
probably very critical about them, we will read it,
mm, mm,
and then be like, okay, yeah, I mean, I don't agree with you, but you make sense. So, but
mm, mm,
with this
mm,
book,
mm,
there was a bit of intrigue missing, and in a
yeah,
sense, if you ask me, unlike say the previous week when I recommended Albert Camus, and then we felt kind of lost, right?
mm,
While
mm,
reading this,
mm,
probably too advanced for us. This was
mm.
quite simple, and I would say it made
Exactly.
me appreciate real good
Mm,
books. So uh,
exactly.
it
Exactly.
was, yeah, it was like, okay, I mean, I know what you're trying to do, but
Mm,
uh, good try, because I don't want to I don't want to critique a writer who has spent a lot of time writing with,
mm, mm, mm,
while I am sitting here without any writing of my own. So,
mm,
but as a read, it was a quick and an easy read. Uh,
mm.
I just wanted to ask you, did you feel, or do you already follow the four agreements, or did you feel like making a new agreement?
Oh, definitely. Um, Actually, I think all four,
Mm,
unto a certain extent, So, like, be impeccable with your word. I actually try to do as much as I say,
mm,
So, if I say something, I actually try to do it. And
mm,
if there are something that I don't do, then
mm,
I actually regret it. And there are
mm,
some regrets that I still, until now, can
mm,
tell you, right? So, there
mm,
are some things that I have accomplished
mm,
which I would have said in the past that I would accomplish, and
mm,
those things are still in my mind.
mm,
So that's definitely there. Do not take anything personally. I think you know me now, right?
mm,
So um, I'm not perfect at it, but I think I can do it. Do not make
mm,
any assumptions. That this is a difficult one. Maybe
mm,
I do make some assumptions. Maybe this
mm,
one, it's like 50-50. Always do your best. Yeah,
mm,
that's also something that I try to follow, I think. So
mm.
no, actually, I think I follow those. Besides the third one, quite good. And in your case,
Um, I'm quite far off, to be honest with you. Uh, Listeners can attest that I speak a bit too much, probably. But even in my life, I'm not always able to keep my word. I should try to do that. I have found that with A's, it's more difficult, with more extraneous circumstances playing a role. When I
mm,
was much
mm,
younger, it was much easier to keep my word. But
mm,
I try to do that at least
mm,
a bit. uh,
mm,
Taking things personally is something that I have learned. Do not take things so personally, right?
mm,
I'm much more easily, I can concede things much more easily these
mm,
days than in
mm,
past, when I would just take things to my head. I was super competitive, and then just had
mm,
to give everything, like every defeat would be personal, every failure would be very personal,
mm,
so stuff like that. But
mm,
these days I feel much more better to in dealing with them. uh,
mm.
yeah, what is the third one again?
Do not make
Yeah,
assumptions.
that part I'm not so good at, because one big personality of me, for people who know, is I like to just look at a result and try to come up with my own theory of how those things happened. So
Mm,
I always like to see events happening and then try to connect my dots. And that's kind of
mm,
like my pastime. So I'm always trying to make
mm,
assumptions, always trying to come up with
mm,
ideas. I'm conscious that these are my assumptions and don't necessarily need to reflect what's happening, but still,
mm, mm.
I keep making assumptions. I try to make them
Okay.
assumptions. And
But
finally,
I think
yeah.
I have a failure
No,
thought
no,
till the end.
please,
Always do
please
best.
interrupt me. The
Okay.
final one was obvious.
Uh, Not make assumptions. I think it was more related to assumptions for other people, right? Like not for other facts, such as like I don't know scientific facts. Like objective assumptions, I think is okay, right? Like, but I think some subjective assumptions. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, but I think it is more like a symptomatic issue. So, because I am so
okay.
used to, it's ingrained in my personality to try to come up with reason, like
Mm,
deductions. So,
mm,
even for other people, I do it, and it's a symptomatic thing. And
mm,
the thing
mm,
is, I'm not beholden to the assumption. So, just because I made an assumption, or to say the contrary, because I make an assumption, I'm more willing to find what the fact is. So I
mm,
make an
mm,
assumption in my head and then ask a question to figure out what the
mm,
fact is. And
mm, mm,
it is contrary to his message, is that you should
mm,
not make assumption and then just try to seek for the fact, let things happen.
mm,
but I let things happen, but also make assumptions. So not necessarily following the third agreement. The fourth
You know, like
agreement, yeah,
that.
the fourth agreement, give your best, is yeah something I try to do, but I see that I
Mm,
oftentimes fail, and this has been a bit of a sticking note for me because I
mm,
realize that I have I have never really given best on anything throughout my life, and because I've
mm,
always been like a realistic guy and
mm,
always used to had this I always had this idea of, so even when I was at school, right, I was always above average student, and the reason
mm,
for it was I always thought that if I would stand out, and be like the guy who scores the highest in the school, then I would
mm,
stand out, and then the same thing would be expected of me in the future. So
mm,
I would
mm,
always
mm,
just do enough that I would not be criticized by my teachers or my parents, but
mm,
not so well that I would stand out and will have to bear the burden of the pressure, right? So
mm, mm,
studying was
mm,
fun, but I always wanted to keep it fun, and for some weird reason, everybody could notice that in me, and all of my teachers used to comment that thing, and um, it was fun back then, right? And I still did that throughout university. And now I look back and I think, okay, so what did I do my best for? And I always feel like, okay, maybe I could have done better in every aspect of my life. And probably it is like this desire to always want to do better, or
mm,
probably because I never gave my best on anything. So it's either of those, but maybe it's something that I need to do, I need to work
mm,
on because
mm,
yeah, this relates to one thing that I recently I had read in the past is how should you live a life? And there's this guy in
mm,
the blog who says you should always live your life in moderation, and he says you should
mm,
also do moderation in moderation. So
mm,
you should not
mm,
always be doing moderation. You should sometimes give your best, work hard. You should try to
mm.
go to the extreme, but try to live most of your life in moderation.
I mean, like, okay, three things. Okay, let's start with the more recent one, the moderation thing. I think I am like on the other spectrum of doing everything in moderation, right? Like,
Yeah,
so I started playing chess and I was like playing it extremely, right? Like
yeah,
sometimes 6 or 7 hours a day, like
yeah,
sometimes like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, right?
yeah,
So my sister, she is still scolding me, because I'm doing things like really extremely.
yeah,
The second point that you mentioned with you won't do your best. I think there is this thing called imposter syndrome. I'm
yeah,
pretty sure you have heard of it, right?
yeah,
It's like pretty common in Germany as well. Most of the workers here, they actually think like, okay, how did I get this job? Like I
mm,
think I actually don't deserve it. I don't do nearly enough of, even though they actually do, right? Like
mm,
that's some assumption that they have on themselves, right? Like that they are
mm,
not doing enough, but actually they are doing enough, right?
mm,
So it seems like it's pretty distributed in our population,
mm,
like
mm,
in the German society at least.
mm,
And um, one thing that I find like really funny is I think a lot of these things, what he writes here, like with this four agreements, is ingrained in our gene. Like the way we
yeah,
were made, like from evolutionary aspect. Like
mm,
this book called Thinking Fast and Slow,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
I think there was this one passage, like, oh no, sorry, that was another book. I actually made that one from the History of Sapiens. I think the brief
okay,
history of Sapiens, right?
okay,
Where he argues that language was made to gossip about other
yeah, yeah,
people and
yeah,
like
yeah,
for lying, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
one of the reasons that language was made was because of lying and everything,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So that doesn't align with be impeccable with your word, right? I mean, like we were actually made this way in a sense, right? And then the second one is like, do not take anything personally. Like I
yeah,
also don't think that aligns with how we
no,
were developed, from the
no,
Stone Age, right? The third one, do not make any assumptions about anything. I also don't think that aligns with that, right?
no,
Like we survived so far, I think, because we were making assumptions all along the way.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
um, The fourth one always do your best. Okay, this one I don't know. Maybe this one we read.
I would argue, for example, even Sapiens says that humans always want to be lazy about doing things.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
The reason why we want to build stuffs like machinery, they all came because we were too lazy to do it by our own hand. Try to get the long-term investment of muscle. S- So instead of cutting grass, we made lawnmowers because it would be easy because we are lazy to do it. So
Yeah,
I think it is
yeah.
all
True that.
contrary.
Mm,
And I remember this. There was this debate I watched between one of the famous right-wing, I think it was Ben Shapiro or Jordan Peterson or someone with an atheist, and they argue that the reason the
Oh, you
uh,
must be careful. You must be careful saying that, Siraj. I'm just saying, Jordan B. Peterson is neither a Christian nor atheist, right? Like he is a
no, no, no.
studying as Christian, you know?
Yeah, the reason the argument they made is they had to build religion to make people behave in how do I say in opposite to their nature. So every
Mm,
four qualities that you say that is innate to the nature, which is opposite to what the book preaches,
mm,
is the whole purpose the religion is made so that they can make people act opposite to their nature. So I think it was Ben Shapiro who had this debate with Alex O'Connor. I remember
mm,
it's a fascinating YouTube video, and
mm, mm, mm,
he makes this argument is that because human nature is sinful by nature, that we want to, for example, we feel lust, we feel greed, it's
mm,
human nature. That's why they had to build religion and all these rules to make sure that we are properly tamed from our
mm,
natural
mm,
instincts. For example, instinct of violence, the instinct of uh, treachery and everything. So I can understand to some extent, right? But I always feel that there is a bit of uh, legacy missing, or I would say an archetypical story missing in this book that could be relied on, or enough examples to be given with enough background knowledge. So, for example, I forgot the name of the Aztec guy he preaches, the Teleco or something like that.
Toltec?
Yeah, Toltec, right? I would have liked this book if it had the same message, but
Mm,
had relied more on Toltec history or Toltec
mm,
tale or Toltec legacy, and
mm,
it would have embedded very well an ancient spiritual religion with the message of this book. But rather, he's just using that as a hook and then just espousing whatever he wants. It
yeah,
didn't come to my uh,
mm,
pleasure, to be honest.
mm,
And
mm, mm,
finally,
mm,
uh, let's continue the conversation, but I'm worried I will forget this thing to ask you. So I will just ask
mm.
you now, how did you feel? Did you read along the last prayers that he had in the book?
I did. Oh my God, it was not good, man. It was like kind of like torturing me. I think the last 100 pages, I read it in one go because I just wanted to finish it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually read it until the end, and I was like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that I was quite unimpressed, to be honest. At the end,
Mm,
it
mm,
felt like I was being forcibly indoctrinated
exactly,
into the. I
exactly.
think he's a evangelical Christian or something like that. So
Mm, mm,
I
mm,
read it along, but I was not impressed by it, to be honest.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, probably because at least our ideology is much more secular. I think
Mm,
we are
mm,
also kind of skeptic of books like these. I think one of
mm,
these weeks, maybe I will recommend a book about Vipassana, which is a Buddhist
mm,
meditation tradition. And the thing about Buddhist religion, even though I don't follow Buddhism, that I like
mm,
is their messaging is atheistic in a sense. I would say
mm,
agnostic in a sense,
mm,
where they say that there is no afterlife, and then the only life you have is now, and
mm,
for example, all the good deeds you have done, all the sins you bear, you bear it inside your body. So
mm,
the idea is that uh, yeah, I think there's the seven I forgot the Buddha's messages, and it's basically about what are the kind of feelings that you feel and why you should suppress it, right? Unlike other
mm,
religion, Buddha tries to give you a pragmatic reason of why you should try to meditate and then try to uh, live an ascetic life. And maybe we can, I would one of the weeks recommend that book and we can read through that and then probably compare it in terms of spirituality with this one so that we can get some context, and even our listeners can go and pick up one of the books and then make their own mind up for it.
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. So, do you have anything you would like to add?
Uh, no, not really.
Yep, neither do I. But I don't want to be as critical as you have been about this book. I appreciate the writer's effort for writing this, coming up,
No,
giving you its
definitely.
time.
Look, that's there, that's there. But I need to be honest, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I didn't like it,
No, no.
right?
I mean, yeah, I think you can be fair about that.
Mm,
Uh,
mm,
but yeah, like I told you, it was like an ex 10, somebody asked him to write 1,000 pages, 1,000 words, and then he just wrote 1,000
mm.
words. For the next week, it's your turn to recommend a book, and maybe you can say a bit about the book that you want to recommend.
So this time I want to recommend the book called Political Ideologies. It is written by Leon P. Baradat.
Yep.
Um, it is basically it gives you a foundation for all the political ideologies, not all the political ideologies, but
Mm,
most of the political ideologies there is. It also explains like what they mean with all the definitions that you hear in the TV, right? Like
mm,
radical, reactionary, conservative, liberal, and everything.
mm,
So I think it's a pretty good book. Especially, I notice it sometimes in my life that I'm actually arguing about politics
mm,
sometimes. Without knowing what I'm talking about sometimes
mm,
because I don't have the sufficient knowledge, to talk about certain things. But
mm.
I talk about those things based on that what I hear in the news, right?
Yep, yep,
But news are not a solid foundation, so
yep,
that's why I wanted to recommend this one book. Yeah.
yep. So, just have to reiterate the name of the author because when I was looking for political
Mm.
ideologies, I found way too many. The author name is Leon P. Bradat, right? So
Yeah.
Baradat. So anybody who wants to read
Mm,
along with us, I would just recommend that they look for this particular book. And this particular book
mm,
has multiple editions as well.
mm,
We are not worrying about editions, to be honest. Let's see if we have any conflicting discussions at the end at next week. But yeah, Leon P. Baradat who should be the writer. Otherwise, you would be confused about which political ideology we are talking about.
mm,
So
mm, mm.
thank you very much, Anup, once again for reading this with us. We
Thanks
are
for having me.
we are reaching the halfway point of our experiments soon. So yeah, we should do like a rating, like a tier rating for the books we have read so far.
Mm.
So yeah, we will probably do that one day, right? Maybe we'll go live. Let's see. And yeah, thank you very much once again, and looking forward to see you next week.
See you next week. Bye bye.
Bye.